1970, Hartford County, Connecticut. A nurse named Donna, then a 28-year-old student in her final year of medical training, received a second-hand Raggedy Ann doll from her mother. It was meant as a small comfort in the cramped apartment she shared with her roommate Angie. Within weeks, the neighbors heard talk of handwritten notes appearing in the apartment, paper no one had bought, marked with a child's uncertain scrawl. "Help us." At first, everyone thought it was just a prank, the kind roommates played on one another in an anxious, exhausted household. But the reports kept coming. When the Warrens finally collected the doll, they placed it behind glass, still framed there today, beside a wooden sign that reads, "Warning, positively do not open." Decades later, Hollywood would soften the story, replacing the fabric face with porcelain dread, but here the cloth smile remains, pale, sealed, and quietly unchanged. The first documented reference appears in the thin file kept by Officer S.J. Mancuso of the Hartford Police Department. Dated September 4, 1970, it logs a domestic disturbance, unknown activity, property damage. Donna and Angie's account matches that in interviews later archived by the Warrens. Furniture displaced, crumbs swept into piles, the doll discovered kneeling on the couch as though moved by unseen hands. The doll's legs could not bend. Still, photographs show it balanced upright. A neighbor, Lou Howe, former Air Force mechanic, testified that he once returned Donna's spare key after she misplaced it, only to find the doll on her bed, face up, different place every time. Skeptical, he laughed then. The report lists his statement under possible intruder dismissed. By October, notes appeared in graphite pencil on parchment paper the roommates never recognized. "Help Lou," one read. "Miss me," another. According to Donna's later statement to the Warrens, a local medium named Mrs. Eileen Moran visited on October 28, 1970. The seance transcript, 2 pages typed with water-damaged ribbon, introduces the name Annabelle Higgins, described as a 7-year-old girl who died accidentally on this property. Property maps confirm that before the complex was built, the land had been a modest farmhouse zone bordering Edison Road Cemetery. Death records list no Annabelle Higgins, though an Annabelle H. Hoffman, age 6 months, died nearby in 1942. Eileen maintained that the spirit asked to stay with me, Donna recounted in a 1971 interview. "I said yes, maybe I shouldn't have." Neighbors remembered candles burning into morning. From the building, janitor's log. "Stray wax on carpet again. Room 2B enjoys games." By winter, the activity shifted. Lou awoke one night to what he later described in a police addendum. Pressure on chest, cloth arm near neck, real hand not visible. He shouted. Angie flicked on the light. The doll lay beside him. Medical exams noted shallow lacerations, 7 claw-like scratches, fading within 48 hours. Still, the Hartford Times coverage of December 3, 1970, filed it under human interest, college pranks. Headline: Medical students claim haunted toy. Every professional voice treated it with politeness, not belief. Even Donna, interviewed again in 1971, said, "I was tired. Maybe we all were." The first act closes as the roommates contact Father Hagen of St. Patrick's Parish. His note to the diocesan office remains preserved in the Warren Occult file. They are frightened. "I sense no deception." Father Hagen requested assistance from Father Cook, an Episcopalian exorcist permitted to consult across dioceses. His logbook, Taud Feb 1971, notes, "Apartment holds object possibly tied to infernal mimicry. Advised removal." He sprinkled holy water, pronounced a blessing, and instructed them to keep the doll out of reach. Accounts diverge. Donna swore noises ceased for 3 days. Lou claimed faint scratching persisted. Police officer Mancuso closed his log with, "No further disturbance." Yet by April, the priest received a letter from Donna's mother reporting renewed incidents. Cold air pockets, muffled sobbing from the doll's closet. On July 18, 1971, Ed and Lorraine Warren recorded their first field audio regarding Raggedy Ann Park Street apartment. The 47-minute reel survives in the Warren archive. Ed's voice begins analytical, listing environmental baselines. At mark 22:04, Lorraine interjects, "It wants recognition." They removed the doll, photographing the apartment for insurance and spiritual reference. Lorraine later said in a 1980 interview for Nesper newsletter, "It wasn't the toy that frightened me. It was how polite everyone remained while something pleaded to be real. For transport safety, the Warrens placed the doll in the back seat of their Chevrolet Vega and prayed. Brakes reportedly failed twice on Route 84. Ed sprinkled holy water, after which the trip continued without issue. Police incident card 51733 confirms roadside assistance logged that evening. Engine stall as overheated brakes, no mechanical failure found. The doll was placed on a chair in the Warren home. Within 2 days, their cat refused the hallway, and Lorraine heard soft shuffling beyond the study door. Visitors to the House Museum, pre-public era 1972, included trainee researcher Tony Spera, now museum curator, who observed the chair slightly rocking when no one stood near. Lorraine kept daily notes. 10 Aug 1972, cold from knees down when approaching case, photographic film fogging repeatedly. Critics point out that Jim Rinaldi, photographer for Bridgeport Post, later admitted his camera jammed because of incorrect exposure settings. Yet he still signed his witness statement. "I can't explain why my hands shook. Because lay blessing failed, Father Cook assisted in a house cleansing on 16 Aug 1972. He later wrote that on his drive home the steering wheel locked, nearly resulting in collision. Entry numbered 28 in his parish. Diary. Warn them to secure the toy behind glass." Following counsel from the church, the Warrens built what would become the Occult Museum. The doll was sealed inside a wooden glass cabinet with a handwritten warning. Lorraine described the enclosure methodically. "We pray the St. Michael prayer daily. Once forgot and heard 3 knocks from the cabinet. Attempts to move the artifact resumed documentation cycles, chain records, museum inventory sheets, photographs numbered sequentially. In none of them is the doll positioned differently. Staff claim, however, that the raghead sometimes tilts after groups laugh. The museum kept an open visitor log beginning 1973. Entry 43 records 2 young men, later identified as motorcyclists who mocked the warnings tapping the glass. Lorraine asked them to leave. One reportedly dismissed her, shouting, "If you're real, do something." 3 hours later, police blotter notes a fatal crash on Monroe Turnpike. Passenger survived with fractures. Affidavit Danaro 2149 quotes him, "Something threw us off balance." Though coincidence, Ed Warren underlined the time in red. The next day, he replaced the glass with thicker acrylic. For many, that single correlation sealed the object's reputation. Reported or not, fear became part of its containment. By 1974, press curiosity grew. The Warrens formalized the New England Society for Psychic Research, NSPR, and opened their private artifact room twice yearly for parish groups. Photographs from Morning Call, Danbury edition, June 1975, show the item among crucifixes, chalices, and letters labeled Cursed Object File. Caption, "Area demonologists display satanic curiosities." Lorraine, interviewed under subdued light, said, "It's evidence more than exhibition." Yet the photo's composition, gloved hands, flash glare on the glass, rendered it cinematic long before Hollywood arrived. For every skeptic who laughed, 2 others wrote afterward describing nightmares. Their correspondence remains bundled with elastic in museum drawers, handwriting tense, uncertain. "We visited. The doll watched me." 1976 saw a small theological review in St. Anselm Quarterly. Spiritual infiltration through familiar object, referencing the Annabelle case without surname. Professor John Kane, Fordham U., called it human projection on the innocent face of childhood merchandise, yet acknowledged measurable psychosomatic aftereffects among believers. Simultaneously, NSPR's logs detail 47 visitors reporting chills, camera malfunction, or fainting near the cabinet. Documentarians later criticized the Warrens' private control of evidence, but supporting testimonies multiplied. Father McKenna affirmed the presence of residual pressure, bitter scent, and air temperature dropped to 10 degrees Celsius in room, despite heating. Institutions reacted quietly. By 1978, some New England parishes prohibited blessed items from being displayed publicly, referencing recent Connecticut incident. The ripple shows in diocesan memos kept at Hartford Archive Box 8047. In 1979, researcher Brad Steiger included the account in Real Ghosts, Restless Spirits. Around 1980, Lorraine Warren consulted on the Conjuring case files lectures, seeds later adapted by screenwriters decades later. Hollywood, craving icons transformed the fabric doll into porcelain terror. Producers cited visual fear recognition. The Annabelle prop, built by John Leonetti, 2014, replaced smiles with cracked glaze, yet interviews concede, "We never touched the original." The real photograph appears briefly in 1980s tabloid inserts, captions already misplaced dates. Researcher Nancy Adams notes, "Fabric magic seldom frightens enough for the screen." In tone, the films mute the investigation's sadness, the weary compassion of nurses fearing they mocked something's plea for empathy. The narrator's work now shifts from factual compilation to contemplation. Some stories are cleaned for audiences. This one resisted. Since 1981, the Warren home remained part residence, part museum. Visitors recall the distinct temperature shift, humidity thick but cool, candle wax scent mixed with dust. Tony Spera, current curator, enforces rules learned the hard way. No touching, no mocking, no provocation. He tells guests about the motorcyclist still sending update letters from rehabilitation through the 1980s. A later visitor log, entry Shabishorkswart 993, 1993, contains faint writing. Apologize for laugh. Cannot sleep since. No return address. When state safety codes forced the museum's temporary closure in 2019, newspaper coverage reignited interest. Even with cases sealed, staff reported alarms triggered nightly at 3 a.m. Maintenance found no wiring faults. Spera quietly said, "She doesn't like being moved." In 2008, a local filmmaker accessed the archives for a short documentary. When he interviewed Lorraine, then 81, she paused before the case. The footage, partially aired, catches her whisper, "You must treat kindness like armor." After Lorraine's passing in 2019, Tony sealed the cabinet a final time with a prayer tag signed by both Warrens. Adjacent to it hang the faded apology letters and yellowing news clippings. I visited in 2023, credentialed for research. The guide dimmed the light. My recorder flicked once, briefly malfunctioned, then resumed, marking a thin burst of static. I checked the battery. Full. On playback between frames, a childlike hum appears. 3 seconds, undetermined source. When I finished notes, I placed my hand on the visitor log and wrote, "Observed respectfully, no interference." As I left, the security bulb above the glass case flickered twice. The recording ends there. Without saying it aloud, the files reveal a pattern. Objects of nurture sometimes inherit our neglect. The nurses who played caretaker to a doll sought affection and atonement. The investigators sought proof. Somewhere between comfort and control, belief took form. The museum still stands in Monroe. The cabinet remains locked, and in each new visitor's reflection on the glass, the same stitched eyes appear, watching patiently, waiting for acknowledgement more than fear.